How are you? Good.
Can do it from here.
I think I can.
Yeah, so I can do it if you go to, so.
Thank you, sir.
I was gonna walk around and do it.
All right, I'd like to call the Wednesday, February 12th budget, or excuse me, school committee budget workshop to order. Can we stand for the pledge? The flag is over Michael's shoulder. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Have a brief moment of reflection. I don't believe we will be, we can do the pledge certainly. I don't know if we'll do another moment of reflection, so please take the time, extend your thoughts and prayers. Thank you all. All right, welcome to the budget workshop. Purpose of this workshop is for the school department, most notably Lori, John McNamee, Principal McKinnon, Mark Durham, to share what the budget looks like for fiscal year 25-26. And how that will impact not only the school, but also the community. And we have a fiscal responsibility to not only the families and students, but also the stakeholders of Little Compton. So I will, with that, now turn it over to Mr. John McNamee and Dr. Mitchell.
Jonathan, it's go time.
And I believe all the slides we will be seeing are in hard copy for the school committee members. Right here.
You didn't make copies of the slides.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They changed during the course of the day. You have 21 pages of facts and figures and narrative.
Okay.
Like I said, this is our first pass. There'll be 3 altogether, 2 here. Oh, 3, all 3 will be here. All right. Welcome to our new cover slide. Oops.
That's okay.
Let me go over here.
Should be going well so far.
Sorry about that. This is why this is new. This is why we do this.
Change this one. Yeah. This is the actual one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I started off with this slide, and I've done that in the past. This is straight from our strategic plan, our vision statement. And it was generated by the school improvement team with IB input. It was a list of items that the SIT team generated, and I consolidated it into a narrative. The Compton School Department prepares students for educational life experiences and in an inclusive atmosphere. And then it just goes through all of the hallmarks of a great scholar, and that is to be well-rounded, and basically articulates our commitment to the whole child. Yeah, there's some lag time there. This is some scholastic highlights. Wilbur and McMahon in recent years has emerged as a top school in the state. We know that. With 2 #1 spots 2 years in a row, this year in ELA and math achievement. The year before, it was in ELA and science achievement. We've also been rated a 5-star school by the Department of Education. That is a nearly impossible designation to capture. And Jack McKinnon will definitely agree with me on that. And the metric is complex, and it is a very high bar. So we have been 5 stars 2 years in a row. Before that, we were 3 stars for about 5 years running. We knew that we could go from good to great and that the community would support us through it. We also know that an international baccalaureate journey correlates with higher student achievement, and that definitely has been the case here at Wilbur and McMahon. Be proud of that. Our families earned all of this as well. And let's see if I hit that. That is an area of our website. When I'm presenting at the budget committee, the town budget committee, I will definitely go there and show them some of the highlights of our International Baccalaureate program. We have a great website. And here are our top spots. We always hear about Jamestown and Barrington and East Greenwich, and there's Little Compton at the top of Ride's list. Every now and then it gets confusing. We're not an elementary school, we're not a middle school, we're 3 through 8. And so we get designated as a district, not a school. And so we have the top district in the state, aggregate data grades 3 through 8. It is not disaggregated for any 3 through 8, any K through 8 school. So we are the top district in the state of Rhode Island. And science, we have some work to do. We were number 1 last year, but dropped to 10, and that's okay. That's only 2 grades that are assessed, grades 5 and grade 8, not grades 3 through 8. So it is a tougher grab in terms of the top spot. But we had a PD last week for all of our science teachers last Friday. We have shifted our curriculum. And so we're doing okay there in terms of continuous improvement. Not only are we number 1 in the state aggregate data, but our grade 3 data was number 2 in the state, usually number 1. Number 2 last year, grade 4 was number 1, grade 5, number 1, grade 6, number 1, grade 7, number 5, grade 8, 20th in the state. So we have some work to do by grade level. And you'll see on the right, there's a nice visual there of all of the schools, all the districts that Ride tracks. ELA, number 1 in the state as well. Grade 3, we were number 3. Grade 4, number 1. Grade 5, number 1. Grade 6, number 2. Grade 7, number 2. Grade 8, number 12. And it's interesting, most middle schools see a steep drop in student achievement. Developmentally, it is the most complicated, ask any of our parents raising middle schoolers right now, developmental stage, known to humankind. But ours has been tracking beautifully, coming down every year. So we're pretty proud of grade 7, number 2 in the state. A former middle school principal here, that is quite the grab. And science, we do have some work to do there, even though we have nothing to be, we have everything to be proud of. Grade 5 was number 3 in the state, grade 8 was number 16. So the state doesn't disaggregate us by grades, but we do, to look at our areas for improvement. Our curriculum offerings correlate with our scholastic highlights, all of those designations. And we are always looking at our curriculum. We have shifted the past few years to Eureka Math Squared. We have shifted to Envision Math for grades 6 through 8. Grade 8, we still have our pre-advanced placement pathways, Algebra 1 and Spanish 1. So our students, once they hit 12th grade, if they've started in 8th grade, they can take AP Calc, they'll be on that pathway, or AP Spanish. So that is our advanced placement pathway, in addition to our International Baccalaureate middle years program. We also added EL education. All of that was grant funded. We used ESSER funds for that. And that shift definitely has correlated with an uptick in our students' high achievement. We use the FOSS full option science system and Carolina Open SciEd. We just shifted to that this year as well. And we adopted Ride's new social studies standards last year and bought the curriculum materials from McGraw-Hill that sync with that. Our co-curricular offerings have expanded. We always had art, music, and band. We added piano. This year, we added history of music. We added journalism. And we've always had physical education, health, media skills, and Spanish. And we added design last year. So we are upping our game when it comes to what we offer our students. For a small school, we have a really good array of curriculum offerings. And we have a great selection of athletics and after-school offerings. Soccer, cross-country, track, basketball, lacrosse, when we can, get a team together, but pull from a very small pool of kids. Kids are already over-programmed, so sometimes a few of these don't run. We have ballet, and we hope to keep that. We just got a grant from Bay Coast Bank, and I think it was $2,000 to continue to offer free ballet classes after school, offered by one of a world-class modern ballet, contemporary ballet troupe, Newport Contemporary Ballet, formerly known as Island Moving Company. We have chorus, we have beginner band, individual band lessons. We've added First Lego League, which is sort of the feeder program for First Tech Challenge. This is our first year with that. The kids love it. We have after-school library hours. I look at that list every week. I can't believe how many students use the library after school. We also partner with community organizations like LC Makers, Girls on the Run, local garden clubs, Conic PTO, Up with School Arts. The community center is one of our frequent collaborators. The Prevention Coalition, Jack and I sit on that board, and the Compton Education Foundation. So we're always trying to leverage every community resource that we can, every grant that we can, etc. We also have a lot of school assemblies, workshops, and field trips, both on and off. We're sort of known for that. And this is just not meant to be read, but just take a look at it. Last week, our chorus sang the national anthem, I believe, at the Providence Bruins. And, our kids are out in the field quite a bit, close by. Sometimes at Simmons Mill Pond or at, right beyond our fields here, or as far flung as DC, Buck Hill, northwest corner of the state. So we offer a lot for a small village school. We offer world-class education, and we cannot thank the community enough for your support, and including the school committee. And next, it's the numbers cruncher, the CPA. 2023 state CPA of school business manager.
So since you took all the time, any questions on budget?
I have 10 minutes.
Before we get into the slides, if we could point your attention to page 10 on the handout. And again, as Dr. Mitchell had mentioned, we have this budget is kind of a work in progress. So, for example, today we have a joint proposal going out for our transportation. Our 5-year contract is up this June. So we're going out with Tiverton, Middletown, Bristol Warren, and ourselves jointly. We had a good showing at today's pre-bid meeting, which was not mandatory. So that's pretty good. And those bids will be coming in, I believe, February 27th, if they're not delayed another week. So what I have in here is like a 5% increase, but we never know if that's going to be enough. So we do have some items that are in the gray area. Healthcare is another one. The trust is recommending anywhere from 6 to 8% increase in healthcare premiums. We've got a 6% increase in there now. I think we should be okay with that, but hopefully it'll come in lower than that. But at this point in time, we've got those in there. And this year is going to be the teacher's contract expires in June of this year. We're going to be going into negotiations. We have a placeholder that we put in there, and for obvious reasons, we don't disclose what that is so that we can have a good discussion negotiating wise. But I think in terms of the administration and what we're looking at and some of the things they'd like to do with the contract, I think we've got enough in the budget at this point in time. So those are probably the 3 largest areas that are kind of open at this point in time. But if you look at page 10, because basically when we go through and we look at the expenses, we say, well, how do we fund this? And if you look at the first column, which is the proposed budget in the town appropriation, that number of 8,261,138 is about 2.62% higher than the year before. Under state law, school committees cannot propose a budget that exceeds 4% of the prior year's town appropriation. So the 4% would be roughly about 320,000. We're looking at 210,000, 713, 262. I believe the town in their preliminary budget, because they've already submitted theirs at the end of January, they put a placeholder in at 3%, which is what we had last year. So I think we're in pretty good shape with the budget commission at the 2.62. But again, that number, and when you look at the revenues, that really is the driving number. If you look at other districts, for example, in Lincoln, I've got a $70 million budget. I could probably have 22 million coming from the state aid. In Little Compton, you're one of the higher, wealthier communities. You've got property values that this year are probably going to exceed 3 billion. So they factor all those into the state aid as well as enrollments. And you can see that we have probably next to New Shore, we probably have the lowest amount of state aid that any district gets. I want to highlight the student tuition. So if you look at the 258.9 and you go to page 11, excuse me, page. No, page 11. I think last year we budgeted somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20. We have 41 out of district students right now. 7 in pre-K and 34 in K through 8 that are paying the $6,000 level. Next year, we only have 1 8th grader that's leaving. So I bumped everybody else up. And then I assumed that we would get 7 more in the pre-K. So we're budgeting 47, 40 at the 6,000, 7 at the 2,700. That's going to give us 258.9. So we're kind of using this as a replacement for state aid, because when you look at the state aid at one point in time, back in 23 and even prior to that, we're at 448. We're down at 321. So we lost 120,000 plus in state aid. And we're making that up, more than making that up in the tuition. And last evening, I guess Tiverton voted to close Fort Barton
Last night.
I was at a meeting at Tiverton. So I said to the finance director, that's great. That's going to be more tuition kids for me. And he said, yeah, probably.
Right.
So I don't know what's going to happen with that. But at this point, we have the 48 in there budgeted, and it's 47, excuse me. So we could do even better than that. So it's going to be interesting to see what next year's brings. So from a revenue standpoint, I feel pretty comfortable that we've got the numbers in there to help support the expenditures that we're going to be looking at tonight as well too. So the enrollment you can see is going up a little bit. The 221 obviously includes tuition paying as well in that number. Portsmouth High School is at 78. So, overall, we're still below 300 overall in our enrollments. Okay. So this is the makeup of the 221. If you look at that 8th grade at 29 students, we have budgeted only 21 of those students going into Portsmouth High School next year. We had a meeting with the guidance and the number of kids that would be going private and parochial. and some tuition paying. I think there's only one tuition paying,
One
which
tuition paying.
obviously would come out because we
Right.
don't have to support that child. So that'll be down. And next year, when you look at grade 7 coming up, which will go into the following year, that's going to be a lower number going into Portsmouth High. And again, that tuition at Portsmouth High is now at 16.5 as a result of that 3-year window that we had. So we went from 15.5 to 16.5 when we did that. So we're not really feeling that impact of that increase because the enrollment has kind of leveled off and come down a little bit. When that 4th grade moves in there, obviously there'll be a little bit of a bump there, but we'll look at the Portsmouth High School enrollment. I think is, yeah, here we
Yeah, there it
go.
is.
So we have so 19 in grade 9 right now. So that's going to be replaced with 21. We got 21 going out. So we're looking at 78 going in there next year. So we're even there. And we have tuition going up to the 16.5. So it's $1,000 more per student. Some of those students could move over into a CTE program, so we'll still be paying tuition. But if they go to, let's say, Newport County Tech, that's 15.5, so it's a little bit less than we're paying. But if they go to the Met, which is a state school, we're paying like 24, 25,000 per student. I think we have a couple right now at the Met.
We have 2 students.
Now, when someone goes to the Met, is that because the CTE program is not available at Portsmouth High? Or can you just say, I want to go to the Met?
Well, they're a state school, so they can do that.
Okay.
So like in Lincoln, we have Davies down the road.
Yes.
So we'll have a number of kids that will go to Davies. We have some of the similar programs, but they certainly have, I think, probably a more robust motive program. Right. So, and a lot of districts now are developing specializations in CTE. So if you have a CTE program that's approved by RIDE, generally it's not going to be provided by another district.
Yeah.
So, what happens there is those children can then go to another district to attend that CTE program. But we're also finding if they want to play athletics at another school,
Correct.
they're going to take a CTE program so that they can play for that school too.
Give away all of Portsmouth's secrets.
That's a whole nother story. But so in terms of the enrollment, I think we're in a pretty good spot in terms of not seeing a major increase in the high school that's going to bump up that tuition number. We talked about the state aid. You can see back in 23, we had the last time we had an increase 3.9%, and then it's gradually kept going down and down and down. So good news is I don't think you can get any lower than that, but we'll wind up paying them.
I was going to say, do you think that we could lose aid altogether?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it related to the financial wealth tax that you talk about sometimes?
Well, I mean, that's all figured in, but there's, they would never eliminate that totally.
There. Does the federal government have any possible implications on us losing aid beyond what you're anticipating?
That whole situation, I mean, right now they're still assessing what would happen, if the Department of Ed goes away. They right now provide oversight. Well, they provide all the title funds. So a Title I, a Title II, or IDA funds, IDA preschool.
Title IV.
Title IV all comes down through RIDE from the feds.
Right.
I mean, if there's any cuts in those funds, we'll know, we probably won't know until the summer,
Right.
probably beginning of the summer, what the allocations would be for those. We do have, for example, at Title I, we do have a couple of retired teachers that are in that program.
Excellent.
If that was to go away, that's a decision we have to make. Generally, what they're saying is that if you have something in Title I, if it goes away, you're not having to bring that back in necessarily. You may want to bring it in, but they're saying because you're not supplanting what you do have already in the schools. So, right now and Rye doesn't really know what the whole impact was going to be on that as well.
Just curious if you had any
We
Yeah.
do fund.
inside track.
Those financially would be the impact.
Big.
Other than that, the Department of Ed has oversight for student loans, so somebody's got to oversee that program. So unless they put it into Doge, but again, this is the town appropriation. You can see historically, a couple of times we've been once over 3% and once at the 3%, but we've been kind of trying to keep it below the 3%. So I think that's a reasonable ask at this point in time. So overall, our expenses, and these expenses obviously equal the revenue that we have. We're looking at a 3.41% increase in our overall expenses. You can see we've been running 2.5, a little over 2.5. 1 year we were at the 3. One of the good things is we didn't fund any salaries out of ESSA 2 or ESSA 3. So we're not in a situation we have that funding cliff. Some districts have.
Just did not do that.
Places I think like Warwick is looking at like a $7 million deficit because they wound up funding some salaries in there, and we were pretty good about how we did that. We do have a little bit of curriculum that we funded that is probably causing that 26 expenses to be up a little bit. So we do have a little bit of that in there, and of course with the increased enrollment that we're looking at, we'll have a little bit more money in there for supplies and things like that. So we talked about the revenues already at this point. Salaries and wages, we settled the non-certified bargaining union last year, so we're moving into a 2% increase. The certified bargaining unit for the teachers, we've got a placeholder added for that. Administrative salaries are based on current contracts. I'm not sure about the daily rate for subs. Is that 150 now? Is that
145.
145? So that number, I thought it was that's 145. And then we have teacher pay coverages, which were in the contract the prior year. On the fringes, again, we have healthcare, and when you look at the budget, you look at salaries, you look at fringe benefits, and then you look at your transportation expense, and then you look at your out-of-district tuitions, which would include the high school, our CTE programs, and our special ed. That's probably close to 85% or more of the budget. So there's not a lot left after you have these expenditures that are in there too. So, and a lot of these obviously are things that we can't negotiate. Co-share, obviously we can, but the healthcare rate's at 6%. Hopefully we can be a little bit less than that, but right now they're projecting 6 to 8. And I think the Delta Dental we're using 3%. They were looking at 3 to 5%. The trust was looking at as the estimate. Co-shares right now would be staying the same, while the 18% we're not certified has already been negotiated. We anticipate that we probably wouldn't do anything for teachers, but we still could do something if we had to. The teacher pension contribution rate is going to be 15.1. So when you add $1 in there for a teacher salaries, you're going to add another 20% in there for your Medicare taxes and your pensions. So you got to keep that in mind. And then of course, payroll taxes and other defined contribution expense like TIA are based on the increases that result in salary increases. So Tuitions, 78, 16.5. On top of that number, we do have the after-school library program, which is roughly around 22,000. And then we have some MLL tuitions that we will pay for those students that need that additional service. So, and a lot of this information you're going to find in your packet. So I've got these numbers in your packet as well. Special education, since we have very few kids, we don't show the numbers, but we're anticipating that we could be up to 179,000. I'm hoping that's on the high end, but sometimes it only takes one student to come in and it's $80,000 that, you know, you're out of pocket for. So
Where is that now, John? That's special education.
what do you mean? Where is it?
What's our number?
What's our number now compared to when?
The projection,
Right now.
well, I think because I've got the projection also in there as well. So so I'm looking at we'd be on budget, which was 125,000 that we put in for last year.
So you're looking for your budget and increase between 125 to 179.
Right. And sometimes you know that because what happens is, I think it's after 3, we kind of own that child. So if they have an IEP that is going to put them in an outplacement, we'll have them till at age 22, I guess is what we have.
Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. So.
And that's for all students all children that are born in the district of Little Compton.
Right, they have to be residents.
We are responsible as a community to provide them an education that meets their needs.
Right, and certainly the way the IEP is written, sometimes you'll have like children that might move into the district. If they have an IEP that puts them out of district, then you're going to be on the hook for those tuition payments.
Correct. Yeah.
So, and here we have the CTE program. So at Newport Creo, we have 30 full-timers at the 15.5 and 1 part-timer, which is at 7,500. And then when the two at the Met, that tuition number usually comes out in April or May, but will probably be somewhere in that 26,000 range for the students.
Two students.
Busing contract this will be the last year. We did issue the RFP. We're hoping to have responses in by February 27th. We do have a 5% increase in there. I'm hoping that's going to be enough. We talked to the consultant that we are using as a group. And he's saying that he is seeing numbers coming in less than double digits. I don't know what kind of a comfort level I have in that, but I think last time we were in the middle of the pandemic when we did ours, and I think they had bumped us up a little bit more than I had anticipated. So I think we're probably in a pretty good number. What's good about this consultant who does a lot of work is he's able to attract a number of different busing companies to come in and look at it. So hopefully we'll get some competitive bidding. Like today, there was 5, which included all the big ones: Ocean State, Durham, First Student, Whaling City out of Fall River, who is looking to do some more work in Rhode Island. So hopefully we'll see a few bids in there. None of the other things have changed in terms of the number of buses, late buses. We have a midday pre-K run. And it's kind of standard for fuel surcharges. And then athletic and extracurricular events, we've been using Fisher and some other buses. We generally don't use for students sometimes, so they're a little bit more expensive and stuff. But we are having them bid on that. Anyway, see what they come in at.
In your notes, you spoke about having one less bus.
Yeah, we used to have 6, we're down to 5, which happened, I think, the year before, because you can see there's a little bit of a decrease in our overall busing. So, and based on the runs that we have, that's basically what we're, what they're going to be bidding on is the 5 buses plus the late bus.
So when you say 5 buses here just for the school, for this school, or is that 5 including how you?
It's 5, it's 5 K through 12 buses. What generally drives that is the elementary anyway. So some of those buses, after they drop the kids off at Portsmouth High and they come over, they're going to wind up picking up through various parts of town, the elementary. So I believe there's like 4 that wind up going through town to pick up kids for the elementary.
3 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon.
And then for Portsmouth High, we have,
22 more.
yes, we have the door-to-door, and then we also have the express bus that leaves from here. Then we have a 2 o'clock dismissal, a 3 o'clock bus, so a 2 o'clock bus, a 3 o'clock bus, and a 5 o'clock bus for our kids there. And we pay for supervision at Portsmouth High, 2 to 5.
I think one of those buses picks up the St. Phil's kids, don't they?
Bus 3 picks up the St. Phil's kids in the morning, right, to go over there.
And who, is it one of the high school buses that picks them up? Is the late bus that picks them up? And
Now, it's one of the, it drops off our kids, and picks up 2, they take off.
okay.
Yeah.
As far as the curriculum supplies, just looking at, what we're spending in that area, and last couple of years, we've seen a little bit of a pickup in that. Some of the high quality curriculums that have been instituted. So, but we're pretty good coming from 25 to 26 in terms of our overall curriculum expenditures. Capital outlays. I'll let Gabriel speak about these.
This one is a little lighter than previous years. I'll start at the bottom because that one's in our favor. This will all be offset by the REAP grant, which we don't have an exact number for, but hopefully that's somewhat consistent with previous years. It's for rural communities. And we used it. Just give it Not yet. So we look at that. The classroom hardware is a combination of technology and security related hardware, a number of upgrades to the actual doors themselves, as well as the doors that serve as barriers between the classrooms, to enable them to lock down easier and better in an emergency. I'm just going to jump all around. That goes hand in hand with the top line, the security door folks. That includes a number of upgrades to the front doors, as well as upgrades to 2 to 3 sets of the back doors that are an older style that can't effectively be outfitted with an access control system. So those will actually be rebuilt. A removable mullion of bar down the middle of the doorway will be added, as well as the hardware to equip it with proper access control so that that can have the same benefits as all of our other entrances. That also leads me to the next line down, that is to augment our access control system to actually integrate that and the phone readers onto those doors and entrances, as well as additional cameras that will capture any entry or exit, authorized or unauthorized. And then those next 2 line items are standard device refreshes. We have a number of administrative devices that are still Windows-based. It's time for a refresh on those. The end of life of Windows 10 has approached, and certain security requirements requiring new hardware in order to progress past that point. And Chromebooks, we are augmenting our fleet. We typically operate off of a small pool of loaner devices that are also the donors for spares. As time goes on, that pool shrinks. We're also looking to replace the remaining iPads, as well as some older devices we've kept around as either assistive devices that have very specific purpose, or kiosk type devices. That includes like digital signage, We now have kiosks where people can file health tickets, also check themselves in and out. This launched this week actually, to get all their supplies if somebody's coming in to work for the day as a substitute. They actually are able to sign in as well as get a number, a Chromebook and identity badge and all of those things that will be assigned and tracked for them for the day. So that's that type of hardware that we're seeking to upgrade along with the rest of what we already have this past year.
So what we haven't figured in here, because I probably can get housing aid from the Department of Education for the health and safety portions of those, like the security doors and the classroom hardware. So we would be able to get 35 to 40% back on those expenditures. We have to get that approved by RIDE, but we can do an emergency approval to get up to 500,000 every year. So we'll probably more than likely, if it's approved, put that through and we can get a little bit of money back in housing aid.
Is the classroom hardware, security door, access control camera projects that you plan to complete in 2025?
Yeah, this is also something we'd like to complete, all semi-related, while we may the same vendors, but we're looking at as individual projects. Piecemeal everything, not bite off too much at once.
Jonathan, is this what you've been working on with the public safety?
We've been working on a number of things.
But a combination is possible?
Yeah, including other solutions to augment access control, tie it into systems panel-wide, so when the police department needs to respond, they'll have access to all of our doors already. They don't need to go through any specific protocol, just their existing fobs and credentials for one building can exist in the other municipally owned buildings as well. So we're always looking at ways to tie those systems together too. We've also been exploring different options out there once we make these upgrades to give the ability in the event of a lockdown, a panic button is hit, give the ability for the police dispatch to actually tap into our camera feeds, into our PA system, actually see what's happening in the building, take control that she directly need to, all in real time.
I just want to point your attention out to page 28 and 29 in your book. This is something that the Budget Commission was looking at in terms of a projection out for our capital. So we do have that included. Take a look at that. We are looking next year at Library Media Center and HVAC improvements will be scheduled in the housing aid and also any PAYGO funding to help supply that. The page 29, I just wanted to kind of update you on, for example, the solar. On page 29, you can see the total cost of that solar project was $560,583. We received $75,000 in a state energy grant, the investment tax credit of 30%. I've applied to the IRS to get a registration number. Once I have that registration number, I'll file a tax return for the town. And we should get 30% back on that for investment credit. That net number of $317,408, we're going to get 35% of that back in housing aid. So that's $111,093. So if you look at the investment credit, the 75 for housing aid, the 185 the town has given us, and the 111 in housing aid reimbursement, that comes to 539. So the net cost to the school department for those solar panels was $21,315.
Incredible.
Yeah,
That's really.
gorgeous.
So
And are we seeing benefit even in these winter months? Jonathan, I know you have. Do we have an idea of what the offset will be for next year?
I got like $5,000 worth of electricity expense. So I received the electricity bill for the Meeting House Lane, which is the small one. I have not received a bill yet for the main account. But I also haven't received any bills from our virtual net meeting supplier. Because if I can't use those credits. I'm probably gonna offset those to the town so they can use them. What's happening is we're selling all the electricity that we're generating from the solar side of it.
Yes.
So that's gonna wind up obviously providing an offset to our overall electricity, so. I'm not sure what's happening with that virtual net metering. I haven't seen any bills going on.
You
I've
put,
seen some credits come through.
so you said you put in $5,000 as a line item for electricity? And what did you have for a line item last year for electricity?
We're at 45,000 or something for. Yeah, 43.5.
So I do want to at least bring this up because I know multiple members of the committee have inquired about this. You say that our tuition is going to grow, or our students possibly grow. We're going up in a threshold. What is that? What is that number where it's starting to become a student teacher ratio issue?
We're not near that number.
All right, that's my first question. My second question would be, even if we do approve this, do we still have the ability? I don't anticipate, I mean, feel free if a member wants to correct me. I don't anticipate that we'll be getting an out of district student for the remainder of the year, right? So if we were to do an increase in the tuition, we could do that prior to the fiscal year next year starting, correct? I know that's something that we would like to discuss as a committee.
Well, I think you would probably want to do it before the close of the year because some of those parents are making.
June 30th, no?
Right, they're making their decision to kind of move forward, yeah.
Yes. So that's what I think that's the date of. We'll get that on an agenda. But at minimum, we're at 6,000. And then maybe we make the decision whether we grandfather these folks in that are already participants and any newcomers, because we're definitely going to, I mean.
You've got multiple children from one family too,
Times
so.
two.
Correct. And we have to be conscientious of that. But then I've already had multiple calls today about Fort Barton. You know, like, so I know we're going to get students from that. How many? I don't know. I think one of the challenges for us is going to be, what does it look like when they're, you know, right now they're saying we're going from 3 to 2. But what does that look like for families? What does that look like for a student's day to day? And do they then decide after seeing what it looks like to say, you know what, Wilbur McMahon's probably a better fit for my child. So I don't know. I mean, in a perfect world, we've gained a good number, but I don't know what that number is going to be. And I just don't want to I want to make sure that not only the families that live in district, but the current families we take out of district are still going to be in a situation where it's beneficial to continue to move forward with taking on students. I mean, would it be a bad thing if we woke up in the middle of June and you're like, holy cow, I can't believe we have almost 90 kids that want to come to. I don't think so either, but let's just, I'm throwing a Hail Mary here. I want to be prepared for anything. Would we be able to accommodate that?
Well, I mean, we can do a projection based on a class size. So if you said that you didn't want to have a class size more than 20.
Okay.
Then you could say, this is how many kids that we can bring in.
Okay.
In addition to what we have right now.
Just flexing this out, because I know we are going to have this discussion probably, you know, if not at the March, probably the April or May school committee meeting, and then have a vote as to what that tuition looks like. And, you know, moving forward, as Michael did note, it is in our policy to discuss that tuition rate every year and approve the continued rate or increase it as necessary.
You have, Ken, you mentioned something very important. You mentioned about kids coming into the district with IEPs and how we're responsible for that,
Well, only if they move into town.
right? If they move.
Yeah.
So
The good news is no one's moving to town.
Right. Well,
Unless they got $2.1 million. It's also the bad news is no one's moving to town. So
So what happens with the student that moves into town with an IEP that's, I'm sorry, let me back up on that. What if we have a tuition student that has an IEP? How is that being handled?
I forget the policy on that, but I don't believe.
I know the policy. Their own can share. So if we don't offer the IEP in-house and can accommodate that with our current staff, we can't accept that student. So we're not going to ever take somebody that has an IEP that exceeds the teacher or administration power or the programs we have in place. So let's say we have X, Y, and Z IEP, and some kid comes in with an A IEP. Well, we're not going to accept that student, and they're going to have to go to a different district that can accommodate that. I thought we may have run into a similar situation earlier in the year where it just didn't jive with.
you are correct.
So I guess that would be a concern that when we do look at tuition, whether it be March or whatever it may be, is that that's taking more of our resources when we look at our tuition rates compared to a student that comes in as a tuition student that does not take those additional resources that may be needed.
I mean, it's like most of the charter schools. The charter schools are taking kids that have a higher need. And
When
then
do we get ourselves into a pickle though, and saying who we take and who we can't take?
I think we dealt with that in the Sean's here, but I think we dealt with that in the policy, didn't we, Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of,
Come on in, the water's warm.
so
Cross over the threshold, you're in.
So in terms of following the CTE model, when there are marginal costs that are associated with any student, IEP or not, we take that into consideration when admitting this. So we look at what are the costs associated with that student. If it's something that we don't provide, and we would need to go on and then hire that, if it's a person or some other addition, some other service, we take that into consideration when making those determinations as to admissions.
Good dry run.
Can I make a comment on that? Because
Oh, please.
Tuition policy, correct?
Yes.
So that's something that's reviewed on an annual basis. So if you had, a marginal cost increase during the course of the year, you could say for the subsequent year that we're not going to meet the needs of that student.
Correct.
That is the policy.
Awesome, good, great grant. With that, I will consider a motion to adjourn the school committee budget workshop. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Excellent.